Hello, and welcome to I Hate Talking, a podcast about talking, including etymology, frustrating topics, current events, and other random subjects. I'm Adam.
And I'm Steph. We are married, and we invite you into these discussions with us as we talk about the good and the bad of talking.
We hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to episode 22 of I Hate Talking.
Hi, everyone.
So we will continue on another 3-part miniseries, apparently, maybe 4 parts if we go long on this episode. So take it away on our word or phrase of this episode as it relates to fatigue.
We're going to talk about mental load. So mental load, also known as cognitive labor, is the cognitive effort required in management of your work, relationships, family, and household. It is the invisible, non-tangible tasks that involve thinking about your responsibilities, making decisions, and managing the details throughout the day.
And when you engage in that mental load, if it is too excessive, then you will have mental fatigue. Is that true?
Correct. I think so.
So we have discussed change fatigue, decision fatigue, and on our potentially third and last episode on fatigue, we'll be talking about mental fatigue as it relates to an outcome of mental overload.
Sure. Sounds great. So the term mental load, I feel like is a hot topic nowadays. Being stereotypical, I feel like a lot of women really resonate with it and men oppose it. And again, the stereotypical is not across the board, but it's definitely what I see in social media. It's definitely what I've experienced personally. So I think it'll be good to talk about because I don't know if you believe in mental load. Do you?
Well, to be quite transparent, I don't think I've even heard the phrase mental load until our last episode where you quoted that at the very end. So this is certainly not something that I see in any of the literature that I'm reading or any of the content that I'm consuming in my normal routine.
Okay, well, some examples of a mental load, if that would help out, would be anticipating needs, finding solutions, making decisions, monitoring progress, overseeing tasks or schedules, making a to-do list, grocery list, chore list, giving out reminders, and offering praise for chores.
So I think I would agree that there is a aspect of truth to mental load and that there is true capacity and energy needed for doing all those things that you described. And they are more, I suppose, mentally challenging. It's not taking necessarily any physical effort or emotional effort. It's more just mental things that you're doing to think and plan and manage, which I think that's a key aspect in the definition that was not present in necessarily those list of activities, because those are more, I think, just the thinking aspect of mental load, perhaps. So I do agree that all that is true, but in the same way, change is true and decision-making is true. So just because you have to utilize your mental faculties on a regular basis does not mean that there's anything necessarily special about that, unless you are specifically being mentally overloaded, which is, I think, a key difference here is that mental load exists and it will exist for everyone and it exists every day and it's not really all that special. So if we are differentiating it in the fact that the mental overload and the resulting fatigue is what we're talking about and what we need to specifically address and overcome and avoid and put together strategy to avoid that, I think then I would agree with that.
Right. So I definitely think everyone has a mental load. Everyone can develop mental fatigue by thinking about all these things. But as a fun game, I didn't tell you we were going to do this. Off the top of your head, what is on your to-do list tomorrow?
So there's three major things on my to-do list. One is relating to a lease negotiation. One is related to a number of meetings that I have at work. And then number three is relating to some specific tasks that I need to get done for work. And then actually, I guess there is a fourth that now I'm thinking about it and have to think that far in advance because that wouldn't even really come into my mind until having finished those three things. So maybe that's a indication that I'm mentally overloaded, or perhaps that's something that I do naturally as a strategy to avoid mental overload. There's a fourth thing where I am co-hosting a meeting for a particular group that I am a leader within.
Okay. And that's your to-do list for tomorrow?
Those are the things that would be on my to-do list as sort of abnormal or non-standard
Okay,
activities.
but what's like when you think about in your brain, like I need to do what tomorrow?
That's what comes to mind, those four things.
Okay. Tomorrow, what comes to my mind is I wake up, I need to fold the laundry, I need to get the kids' clothes, I need to make sure their doctor's appointments are checked. We haven't gotten dental appointments in a while. The kids have been good, but we haven't, so I need to schedule those. I need to pack their school lunches. I need to do their homeschooling. I need to check the birthdays that are coming up and send those cards out. I need to make sure that you're ready for dinner. We're going to probably have shabu shabu because it's a light day tomorrow. We don't have as much stuff as we normally do. So we can have a lawn dinner. Let's have shabu shabu. So I need to prep the food. I just got the delivery 20 minutes ago at my front door for groceries. So I just put those away. So I just need to cut that vegetables up. No problem. I need to make sure kids brush their teeth. I need to clean the bedrooms. I need to wash the bedding because we didn't do that this weekend. I need to make sure that they go outside at some point tomorrow. I should clean out the car. We are out of milk because I didn't order that and we're almost out. So we need to go to the store to get milk. That's literally like just the things off the top of my head right now without even thinking. Plus like all your your regular like responding to messages and work related emails and all that.
So I suppose those are things that must be done tomorrow or in a daily routine. But I think I would differentiate routine and non-routine in my to-do list and where it takes my mental capacity, because a number of those things that you described, if I had those under my specific personal purview of responsibility, would not take any place in my mind because I would just write them down or put them on a list and then look at that at some point in that day or throughout the week and be able to look at that and plan for that and do those things accordingly. And if you'll notice, those three and actually four things that I described for my to-do list tomorrow are completely non-standard. These are things that I do almost nearly on a non-regular basis. One of these things is a once in a lifetime thing. One of these things is a once in a week thing. One of these things is due to a major software change, so that is maybe every quarter. And the other thing is an annual thing. So these are things that are way outside of the routine when they are taking part in my mental to-do list.
But did you have to think about what you're eating tomorrow?
No, because I don't
You
think
have a wife that does that for you.
most days that's true. And on the days that doesn't happen because you're dealing with other priorities, then I will just do what I need to do to eat something or skip a meal or whatever the case may
Right,
be.
but you can't do that 7 days a week because you're either eating junk then or you are not eating. So you have to have some kind of plan, right, to eat a whole, well balanced diet.
Well, there you go. We're again foreshadowing a future episode on ketosis and one meal a day
You want to
because
talk about keto so bad.
well, you threw it in this time.
I said well balanced. We'll talk about keto. It's his second love.
Now, I do have a running to-do list that I keep on a sheet of paper for work. I have, when things are very busy, a similar to-do list on a sheet of paper or on a phone application that keeps a running list of smaller tasks that must be done. There's even right now, I think, some things that we have on the grocery list and some things that are on our house repair or routine maintenance type things that are on a list that I'll look at occasionally and see where we can fit that into our life to be able to work on some of those things. So I think that for those, again, I would categorize them as more routine things are going to be put on a list. I'll look at the list and therefore it will not take any mental capacity on my part.
Okay. According to the great Google, there's 4 stages of mental load, which are anticipating needs, finding solutions to meet the need, making decisions, and then monitoring the progress.
So I did not know that because I had, up until last week, never even heard this term.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is something that does cause mental load. And I think everybody needs to go through those steps. But again, I'm failing to find how it negatively affects a person because mental load seems like that it's something that everybody has to deal with and everybody needs to do well. So I'm wondering if there is a distinction that I've previously described in terms of there being mental overload, and that's really what we need to avoid.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the mental overload part because everybody, no matter your age or status in life, has a mental load if you're considering like what you think about on your to-do list. I think where it becomes a hot button topic is that often women are ascribed or assumed to have more of the mental load than men, because it is in our culture the woman that typically, not always, but often, is responsible for birthdays. So maybe I have to remind you, oh, it's so and so's birthday, or I bought that birthday gift or anniversary gift, the kids' doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, the grocery delivery order, all that kind of thing tends to fall, even when statistically men and women both work full time. The women often are more responsible for those items. And so you're right. I think it's more of a mental overload, a fatigue of just this constant, in my brain, I can feel it. It's a constant running list of what I need to do. And it took me forever to order salt. So many times in my brain, I'd use the salt cooking and think, I need to order more salt. We even had a visitor recently while I was using the salt, and I told him, don't let me forget to add salt to my grocery list. And we moved on with our lives, and I forgot to add salt. I finally got it. We have salt. Hooray. But I think it's like this constant, even if I have it written down, it's still this constant running to-do list in my brain of everything, all the anticipating all the needs of our family.
And I do agree that I think in typical gender roles, that is true that the significant events and more of the household management does fall to the woman of the household, whereas the man is perhaps more responsible for breadwinning or taking care of more of the physical nature of things. So, uh, taking care of the house or yard work or whatever the case may be. But nonetheless, I think that a lot of vocations, as well as just those things that fall within the routine maintenance, would still be categorized under a quote unquote running to do list. So I think that from my own perspective, that these things could be combated or avoided by putting together a robust system for tracking these things, removing the mental load from your mental capacities and using the system to support.
I can see where you're coming from our conversation. But do you know how many birthdays of family members do we have this week?
Well, first I would have had to think what date it is because I don't even know that because it doesn't take part of my mental capacity because I can use this device that tells me that today is this date and I don't even have to think about that. So this particular August 29th, in the following 7 days, I would say that there was no birthdays because none come to my mind.
There's 5. So I understand your argument would be that shouldn't be part of my mental load because you would put it in your phone to remind you, order these birthday presents, right? And you would not, that would not bother you.
Precisely, because if this was my particular responsibility, which again, I don't know if we've really come to a particular verbal conclusion, it's more that these things have landed in your sphere of responsibility, and these are things that you take care of, again, whether that be gender roles or just our particular relationship and how we have divided duties. But if it was my particular duty, yes, I would have a system to track this so that it was not needed to be remembered in my mind through a running to-do list or just happening to look at the calendar and thinking ahead. I would have this documented and planned in some form of software or system. And I don't think that's a stretch, right? I don't think that I'm just theorizing that because that is how I approach life for things that I am responsible for. I will document, I will take notes, I will have reminders, I will plan, I will have these lists and things that I track both on paper as well as within software for the things that I am responsible for.
Right. But you still, even if you had all that, you still would have to take the time to put so and so's birthday in and set a reminder. And then you'd have to take the time to see that reminder, look on Amazon, or think about what they would need or want and take the time to order that. I feel like it has to be meaningful. Don't just send willy nilly or ignore it. Like, if we're going to send a gift, I want it to be a meaningful gift. So you have to stop and think about, what does that person like? What are their hobbies? What could be useful to them? And then you have to think, what's in my price range? All right, I'm sending this. What's their address? And even if Amazon saves addresses, which ours does, you still have to scroll down, make sure that it's the right address, and send it. And make sure that you're sending a message or a card. When their actual birthday comes, still send a text or a call. See how, like, each one of these is more of a step. It's not just my phone tells me it's so and so's birthday.
I suppose so, but to put it in perspective of maybe how I have a particular task in the workplace is that I will have a meeting on my calendar. It does have the reminder. I do typically at the end of the day look at what I have on the next day, or at the start of the day look at what I have on the agenda for that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to think about that meeting and have to think about who's going to be on that meeting. And if I need to have anything particularly prepared for that meeting, do I need to review any notes from previous meetings? Do I need to have a particular presentation? Am I actually going to be hosting or just a participant? And things of that nature. So again, I think all that is real, but I think it's so normal unless we're talking about mental overload.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's what it means. Mental load means, like, when you hear that term, it often means the woman, statistically, has more of a running to-do list than the man in our culture. Because even when I worked full time and we both worked full time professional careers. I was still the one on my lunch break that went to get lunch, like grocery shop for our food, and was still responsible for when it was anniversary or a birthday.
So I guess I would agree that that is a typical gender role division of duties. I think that is true in both fictional and non-fictional literature, and situational comedies and things of that nature, where that is true in art, and art reflects life. But nonetheless, I think that men have their own things that they have to endure from a mental load perspective. And again, all those things that you mentioned in terms of the 4 steps, predicting the needs and making a decision and planning accordingly and monitoring progress, that those things will be present for things that men do as well. So is it the fact that perhaps you're positing that women have just more in number, or more complexity around the things that they have within their mental load?
That's a good question. My instinct is to say both. To both. I think that, at least for me, it's a bunch of little things that add up. Because I feel like I take on a lot of, like, you're so helpful with the kids and do so much. But I do feel like a lot of times I'm still the one that's like, hey, so and so has a dentist appointment, or they're about to get braces in a couple of weeks. Yay. So we have to schedule the orthodontist, or our insurance covered, and all that kind of stuff. Uh, all those little things. And then just like, how's he going to do when he gets his braces? Maybe we should do this for him or do that to help ease the pain or ease the anxiety. And so I think a bunch of everyone's else's emotions also needs add to the weight of the problem, and make it feel so much heavier than if I was just caring for myself alone.
So smaller in nature, but a much larger number.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
And who's getting braces?
Okay, we'll cut that part out. Edit.
Edit.
See, that's part of my mental load. Okay, we shouldn't cut that because it shows right there. You said who is, and I had to tell you who is. I still have to carry the load emotionally and mentally for who is going to their consultation for their braces.
Yes, but for my defense, I was clarifying because I did know that we were going for a consultation, not necessarily like this is happening and he's has a specific schedule set for it to be installed on that particular date.
Correct. It is not. But I'm still responsible. I know that that isn't set. You weren't sure if it was a consult or
No,
actual braces.
no, I was clarifying because I knew that there was the potential and that would make sense from a consultation perspective. But you made it sound like this was happening. So I was clarifying because I was not aware of anyone that we knew where it was like actually happening and not just an exploratory conversation at this point.
Okay.
So for a number of the things that we've talked about with change fatigue or decision fatigue, we have some sort of strategy to deal with these things. So is there a strategy to deal with and I'm catching myself because I'm referring to it as mental overload, because I think that's really the only thing that you would need to have a strategy about, because mental load is normal and natural and everybody experiences that, in my opinion.
I can see where you're coming from. I think how people typically use it differently than you're using it. You're saying everyone has a mental load of something. Often in culture, it's used basically as mental overload. It's saying that my brain has a running tally of more things than your brain does.
So perhaps that's true, but if your brain can handle that, does it really matter that one versus another has a different load? Because there may be some people, to use a very generic example, right? There may be some people that can carry 40 pounds of groceries, and there might be somebody that carries 30 pounds of groceries. And if they both have to take 20 pounds of groceries from the delivery truck to the door, then neither one of them are overloaded, even though there may be one closer to the capacity than the other.
Yeah, that would be ideal. But I think often we are overloaded. I feel like I'm overloaded.
So then, therefore, in that example, there's somebody that has to carry 35 pounds of groceries, and one person is not overloaded and the other person is overloaded. Or is it in the fact that perhaps the 40 person only carries the 20 pounds and the 30-pound person has to carry 90 pounds?
It could be, and that would be really hard and sad, and it definitely happens. I think about like um personally for us, we've had a really weird couple weeks. It is not normal. We've had exceptionally busy or different schedules than normal. And so I feel like you keep talking about like doing this. And I've had to tell you several times, I am focusing on this right here. This is my priority. And then we get through that and then we can move on to the next thing. It's not because I'm trying to discount the future things you're talking about, but I cannot process all that. Like I have so much going on and these things are so big. I mean, they're big items that have come up. So I want to do them well. And so I've had to say, like, this is the priority number one. Now that's over. Now we can do priority number two. Otherwise, in the past, when I wouldn't make that hard, I'm only thinking about this right here stance, and I would try to do all of it, I would get so overwhelmed and stressed, and it wasn't good for anybody.
So perhaps that is getting into one strategy that one could utilize is to focus on the either near term and or high priority things that need to be accomplished and set to the side those things that are either lower priority or are further in the future and don't need to be discussed and determined at this precise moment.
So, on top of what you just said, I think some strategies are obviously writing it down. Um, if it's written on paper, it can take off that brain work, like open up some space in your brain, if that makes sense, for other things. So, making a to do list, writing it down, and also asking for help. Yeah, I love, you know, cooking and I love all that. But either asking you, hey, on your way home, stop and get milk, please. Or you taking the initiative of looking in the fridge and being like, oh, the milk is almost low. Should I go get more? Both of those would be super helpful strategies to do.
Yep, indeed. And I think that is something that we have on our list that is actually contained within Trello on topics that we will discuss in the future. And that is Trello as one of a productivity and software type thing to manage those lists. And I could look at our shared grocery list and see that there is maybe something at the store that I could relieve you of and be able to pick up or whatever the case may be. We've also used that, I think, for packing lists and other things that, again, will use that system to record and plan things so that it doesn't have to stay within our mind only.
Right. And I mean, that's super helpful. And I'm very grateful for that. Being a little like devil's advocate about it, like the salt example I gave earlier, how we've been really low on salt lately. That and I just keep forgetting to put it on Trello. Even putting an item on Trello is a mental task. I still have to stop, pull up my phone, pull out Trello, type it in, and enter it. Those are still steps that I have to actually take and think about. And I'm so thankful that you're like, oh, I saw that she needs salt on Trello. I'm going to go buy it. So I definitely want to give you credit for that. But did you know we were out of salt for the last 2 weeks?
Nope, I have not. I guess I have not used the salt nor saw that it was low, but I also have been to the store and picked up every single item on the list, and that was not one of them. But
Right.
to your point, it wasn't on the list.
Right. Because I still couldn't mentally take the time to put it on the list.
Indeed. So we're coming to the close here, but I think that I will end with one of my favorite quotes on organizational systems. And this comes from Noah Kagan, who has a number of different companies, and I think he has his own podcast as well. But he has a whole system of organization. But one of my favorite quotes from him in regards to that is ruthlessly kill any organization system that doesn't actually help you. Ruthlessly kill any organization system that doesn't actually help you. So if there is some sort of organizational system, i.e. said Trello list, that maybe worked in the past but is no longer working, that particular organizational system needs to be ruthlessly killed.
I like that. I like that it gives you the freedom to change when you need a change.
So there you have it. So from your friends at I Hate Talking, until next time, remember, it's only through talking that we begin the journey to understanding.